Welcome to the Till Books Do Us Part podcast. I'm Justin.
And I'm Jackie. Join us each week as we, a husband and wife duo, deep dive and discuss your favorite books.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, guys. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Blood and Ash series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we're going to be covering chapters 11 through 20, I believe, in this episode.
Yep.
So another 10 chapters.
Yep. And it's fun. I think I like doing it this way also.
I do.
It's been fun. I think it's fun probably for everybody to just like read or do whatever and then not really have to pay attention as hard because we're going to cover all the main points. I think it's good for everybody.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that I am less familiar with this series. So rereading this, I feel like I'm relearning things and it's almost like it's for the first time because I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah, and there's so much, right? So, spoiler warning before we get too far. We're covering things from the whole series, not just this book. So if you're listening for the first time, we don't want to ruin anything for you. But yeah, we may if you listen. So
Also, content warning, we're discussing adult books and using adult language. And I also wanted to do a trigger warning for this episode because if you are not familiar with this section of the book, there is a discussion of assault. So wanted to include that on there too.
Yep. Luckily, Mazine and the Duke both die pretty early on in the series. So there's your first spoiler warning. Or alert. There you go. Spoiler alert. There
Spoiler alert.
Yep. All right. So you want to start us off with the summary, Jack?
Sure. So it's almost crazy to go back and think that at the beginning of this set of chapters is when Hawk sees Poppy's face for the first time. So his reaction surprises Poppy and makes Tawny suspicious of their relationship. Poppy confides in Tawny about the red pearl, and the next day they find themselves in the atrium with the other ladies in wait. Poppy is summoned by the Duke, and Hawk does not like Poppy's reaction to the summons. Poppy receives one of her lessons from the Duke and spends the next 2 days recovering. The mist arrives and brings a whole bunch of Craven with it, and Poppy rushes out to the rise to help defend the city. Then Hawk runs into her, where he finally reveals that he knows who she is. The next day, the Duke and Duchess address the people about the Craven attack, and a dissenter interrupts by throwing a Craven hand at them. Poppy has a lesson with the priestess where Hawk comes to her defense. And I really feel like this is the set of chapters where Poppy and Hawk's relationship starts to change.
Yeah, well, I think you start to see that there's going to be an actual potential relationship. You know what I mean? Like at first, at least for me, when I first read it, I was like, maybe. Also, this dude could die like right now. Like I'm always waiting for the dude to die immediately.
Well, and it's like, I guess from her point of view, their relationship somewhat started off uncomplicated other than the fact that she's the maiden and obviously is not supposed to have a relationship with anybody. But then I guess from his side, obviously it's very complicated because he's supposed to be kidnapping her and using her in their battle strategy.
It's a weird relationship really from the get-go up until the point where like everything's cool and then there's like a threesome and you're like, all right, well, it's always evolving, like the whole relationship kind of just continues to change. So I'm excited for where it's going to take us.
Yeah, buckle up.
Yeah, either way. So I hate the Duke. I hate Mazine. I've said this before. Yes, the way they treat Poppy is just like the cruelty in it, I think is just, obviously hard for everybody to read. Just like, they're just evil little fucking characters. So I appreciate the fact that both of them die fairly soon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not quite yet. So to start off, this set of chapters starts with the Duke basically starting to show how cruel he really is, I guess. You start to see it a little more. He has Poppy, basically drop her veil, right? Because how did we end up the last set? We ended up the last set with with Hawk being introduced as her.
Yeah, I think the very last sentence of it was him asking her to remove the veil.
Right, so now she can see him. So she says when he asks her to do this, he smiles with relish. Obviously excited for, I guess, her to be hurt by him seeing the scars. That's the point we're trying to make.
Yeah, he thinks that everyone's going to react to seeing her face. poorly.
Right, which would hurt her feelings or whatever. So, yeah, just an evil dude. But, she comments and says that he loves to make her uncomfortable. And, if she wants to make his day or whatever, give her something or give him something to be disappointed in. And refers to, like, giving lessons and stuff. It seems like he took pleasure in, like, torturing. And that's kind of common with this Ascended is pleasure being taken in killing or torturing.
Yeah, they're definitely depicted as monsters.
Right. And I don't know, to me, it's insane because I thought also the queen, Isbeth being the mom wouldn't want her being tortured. And she says, I think at some point she didn't know what was happening, but I feel like you would know.
Yeah, I mean, you at least would know the Duke's character, I guess.
You would think, right?
I don't know. And I feel like there has to be more to the situation as far as how he treats her. Like, there's got to be more to it than I think than him just being, like, sadistic.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not sure. But I know in Castiel's point of view, he says the predator in him recognizes the predator in the Duke.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense. And I'm glad for how the Duke inevitably gets treated. So,
yeah.
Poppy ends up revealing her face, and, Hawk doesn't seem disappointed. And the Duke makes a comment, right? She's truly unique. Half her face is a masterpiece, the other half a nightmare or whatever, which is his, like, common thing. And Hawk, kind of being out of line, it seems like, says, both halves are as beautiful as the whole.
Yeah, which, I mean, again, from his point of view, he meant, like he said, her scars, like, made her more beautiful because it showed her strength.
Right. In my opinion, it was over for Poppy from here. Like, this was a slam dunk. It was over. Like, as soon as he said that, basically, she had an orgasm. She did. She came immediately, and it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Here it is. So,
I mean, I definitely think that she felt very seen in that moment.
Yeah, for sure. Which is good.
Yeah. And again, from Castiel's point of view, he said the Duke saying that about her made him want to rip his tongue out. And he also uses her name in his vow, which apparently it was not what he was supposed to do. And he said he did it because he knew she needed someone to see her in that moment and acknowledge her.
Right. So I think that's actually a solid segue. Nice. Into the next scene, which is Poppy being in her room thinking about, like, the whole interaction, kind of reflecting on it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that she realized then that he had said Penelope and not the maiden or maiden the chosen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like, well, if he's, so great at his job, like, how would he mess this up? Like, why wouldn't he know this?
Yeah, that's true. It was obviously pretty on purpose.
Right. And Tawny even says that something's up with him or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
she knows, like, right away that there's more to this story.
Mm-hmm. And then Poppy tells her that they kissed at the Red Pearl. And so then which Tawny turns into a very funny character from here on out.
Well, and, like, I think that Poppy expected her to, react negatively. And Tawny was like, nah, I'm all about it. Like, Tawny's like, I wish you had stayed. You wouldn't be a maiden anymore if you had. And she said that when he said his oath, he made it sound like sex, which, like, Tawny's the best. Like, because she's, like, eager for what's to come, even though she's not sure about what it means for Poppy as the maiden. And Poppy's like, this can't continue. And Tawny's like, nah, this is about to be fun.
Yeah, she's definitely rooting her on. And I still don't know how I feel about Tawny now, because when she comes back in the fourth book, maybe, she's weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to say that
about her.
Yeah, she's weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's up with that, and it's a bummer because I love her character before, and it seems like that's not who she is now.
Yeah, well, hopefully she regains some of that.
Yeah, you would hope so. So we end up jumping forward to the next day when Poppy, Tawny, and a couple ladies in wait, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the atrium the next day. Hawk standing guard.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of ironic because she mentioned that he was, like, super alert, making sure that, he was scanning the room the whole time, which is just kind of ironic because he's the one that she's being guarded from.
Right. Yeah, and all these chicks in here, these ladies in wait, they're, like, pretending to have headaches and shit and, like, doing all these weird things to get Hawk's attention.
They're thirsty.
They're thirsty as a bitch.
They are.
Yeah.
And Poppy uses her gift while they're doing that to confirm that they're not actually in pain.
Yeah, well, they also say that he visits often to the Red Pearl.
Yeah, they were talking about Hawk.
Yeah, so I was like,
Yeah, Which during this whole thing, Poppy has to sit there in silence, which
Right.
would literally be the worst. Should that be your existence, is to just have to sit, like not be able to interact with people?
Yeah, I mean, want to have something to say or whatever and be just forced to bite your tongue the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, that would be miserable. That would drive anybody insane.
To not be allowed to talk to anybody but Tawny.
Yeah, which at least it's Tawny. She seems pretty cool. But anyway, we end up getting a little bit information here on Miss Willa Collin.
Yeah, it's the first time you hear the diary.
Yep. So this is what I think Poppy believes, or this is what they're told. This is what the diary says or whatever. Anyway, she lived in Macedonia 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She's had a very active love life.
Mm-hmm.
She had detailed her affairs quite explicitly in her journal, and she filed it away. It was in the Athenaeum, some sort of historical account. She also heard that she only wrote about her most skilled partners. So not all of her partners.
Didn't it say something about like one of which being the king?
I think so.
Yeah, I thought that it said something like that.
I don't remember, but I don't know, because when you meet with Miss Willa, she's like really cool and like smooth and like sly. I don't know. I think I like her. I want to know more about her.
Yeah.
I want her to be more of a character.
Well, there's a whole nother book. It's called Visions of Blood and Ash, I think.
Okay.
I might be wrong about that title, but it is like a whole compendium from Willa.
Okay. All right. That'd be cool.
So it's not necessarily like new content. It's explaining more behind the scenes of old content.
Okay.
From the series.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this because we end up finding out who holds all the information in the castle. If I lived in a castle, who would I think held all the information? I think it would also be the maids, whatever you want to. She refers to them as maids, whatever you want to call the people that take care of the grounds in a castle.
Right.
Obviously, that's going to know or that's going to know all the information.
Yeah.
So they're treated like ghosts, apparently, is what she says. And so nobody like pays attention to them and just talks freely in front of them, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like they're human beings.
And Britta seems to be the most knowledgeable.
Right. And like they can hear. Yeah. They're human beings, they're people. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. The Ascended are just crazy. So, Britta, this is what she's heard. This is the story she's been told by the ladies in wait. She's been told that Prince Castile had been spotted in Three Rivers and that he started the fire that killed Mr. Duke Everton. Okay.
Yep.
Also, you don't hear Castile very often. It's early in the book. And I don't know if I had put that together yet. I'm pretty sure I did already know at this point that Hawke and Castile were the same person.
You think you did?
I think. I don't know for sure, but I don't remember. I feel like by this point I did, but I don't know.
I think I suspected it. I also thought that it could be his brother. Like Prince Castile's brother. Yeah, I knew he wasn't who he said he was, for sure.
I think brothers are going to. I might have thought that for a while, too. You're right. Yeah, suspected, not new. I knew that obviously there was something going on with Hawke and Castile and this whole situation here.
Yeah.
Maybe if they're the same person. I don't know if I knew that yet. Anyway, Britta claims that, the few people say that they've seen Castile, said he's quite handsome, and you're like, okay, here you go. You know what I mean? Like, all these ladies over here talking about Mr. Hawke.
Everybody talking
about Mr. Hawke. She said that was how he gained that access to Goldcrest Manor because of his looks, which makes sense because he's probably gained a lot of trust based on his looks here as well, from what it seems like.
Yeah.
Duchess Everton developed a relationship, right, with him, like a sexual relationship, apparently. Didn't know who he was, and then that's how he was kind of able to move through the manor. That's how he killed the Duke. Set the whole thing ablaze.
Which, in his point of view, he said that he didn't actually like develop a sexual relationship with her, but that and the Duke was already dead when the fire was set.
Interesting. I want to know how Britta knows so much. How she knows so much. Like, everybody thinks she's the one that has the worst hearing, so they talk about the most shit in front of her, or is she just like the head maid, so everybody comes to her and tells her what they know? Well,
I think she's probably just real nosy, so she's the one who's like intentionally eavesdropping and putting herself in situations where she can learn information.
Okay, I like that. I can accept that.
Yeah. Which then Poppy gets irritated because they seem to be excited when they're talking about the Dark One, and so she speaks up. even though she's not supposed to. And this time, also, they all think that, or Poppy, well, all of them, think that they're too quiet for Hawk to be able to hear them.
Right, yeah.
Which, of course, he's an Atlantean, so he can hear all hearing, that shit, and in his point of view, he could hear everything they were saying.
So, I'm going to point out a moment where I was like, this motherfucker got way too much game, all right?
Yeah.
Tawny asks Hawk, right? Because they're all like, again, they're doing all this shit to get his attention and whatever. All these ladies in here, they want, Mr. Hawk to come check them out. So Tawny says, is there a threat of stray crystals we need to be aware of? Or there's something you need, Hawk? Right? And then he looks at Poppy and says, there's many things I'm in need of, right? And so, Tawny was like kind of looking forward, like, oh, what's this going to be? Yeah, he's got too much game. He's got too much power. All right. This dude uses her nickname in public in front of whoever the fuck he wants to. He says whatever he wants to the priestess.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody says shit to this dude.
Well, and I also feel like he's definitely trying to somewhat manipulate Poppy here because he's trying to gain her trust and he's trying to get close to her. So, like, obviously he wants to flirt with her, but also it's benefiting him to do so.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was just pointing out he's a problem. And at this point, like, anything he wants is going to happen. Like, he's going to kidnap her because why not? Right? Like, she's going to go with him.
She's just going to go. That's not really kidnapping at that point, then.
That's true. So, this is the point that Poppy gets summoned by the Duke, right? Mm-hmm. And this is about to be a fucking shit show. She gets up there, and him and Lord Mazine are in the room, right? And, like, the door locks behind him. And you just like, motherfucker.
Yeah, and right away, Hawk can tell something is off, and he tells her he's going to wait for her outside, but, you can tell that he seems hesitant to even leave her. And you do also have to remember, she's the maiden to him still, technically. This isn't like his significant other or anything yet. He doesn't necessarily have feelings for her. So he leaves, but he doesn't feel good about it.
Yeah. Again, shitty situation. So Poppy doesn't know why she's been summoned, basically.
Mm-hmm. But immediately she sees the canes against the wall, and canes, plural. Mm-hmm. It's also ironic that these are made from the trees from the Blood Forest, because later we learn that those trees in the Blood Forest literally grow to protect the gods.
Yeah.
Which Poppy is a god.
Yeah, it's a fucked up situation, man. And again, the Duke and Mazine are going to get what's coming to both of them.
Yeah.
Mazine in like a significant way too. So anyway, she gets in here, right, and she doesn't know what she's there for, and Mazine is smiling. So immediately you're just
bad news.
Yeah, like motherfucker, right? Duke, hey, remove your veil, and she's like, yeah, I'm not supposed to because we're alone, whatever. And she's like, all right, and then he says that the gods won't find any fault in his proceedings today.
Yeah, of course they won't. And that's more proof that these people are fully aware that the gods are not actually involved in any of this and that they're sleeping or whatever.
Yeah, there's another point later that comes up where it's something similar where it's like, you're not supposed to do this because of the gods, and they're like, the gods will be fine today.
Yeah. In this situation.
Right. I think it's when the Duchess tells her about the first maiden or something, and it's like, oh, they won't find any fault in me today. But this kind of area or whatever, once you get to this set of chapters, from a nobody with no experience, just like a dude on the outside reading this, it's hard to read.
Yeah.
So this chapter, or this set of sections, whatever, the set of chapters must be very difficult to read just in general for probably most people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bummer that I guess it's at the beginning of the series because it's such a good series, and I can see how this might be a turnoff for some people. But,
yeah, I think that it was covered well. I think that she did a good job with it, and obviously it could have been much worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she did a good job with it.
Yeah. So, some of the points that end up happening during this is immediately, the Duke calls her face a shame, right? Says it's flawed and that Hawk only said that she was beautiful because he couldn't say otherwise. Like, basically, he's automatically coming in with, like, trying to just...
Yeah, he couldn't even let her have that. He had to take away even a compliment that somebody else had given her. Like, obviously, he's not sending any compliments her way, but he doesn't even want her to receive them from anybody else. And she also, this whole time, is thinking that she's here because Hawk had told on her. Like, she felt, like, betrayed.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even really think about that again when I put this down here. But yeah, she's already kind of got that other emotional kind of like feeling going on the whole other side. And then this is being put on her. It's pretty terrible. So he ends up touching her, like, this is just, like, gross, right? Like, he touches her chin, her lips. He's talking about her eyes and yeah, her body, like, how people would find it pleasing. And it's, like, fucking nasty, dude.
Yeah, very, very creepy. But he also mentions her looking so much like her mother, which I'm curious what mother he's referring to. Is it the one that the public thought that it was, or was it actually the queen? Like, does he know the queen is her mother?
I read this and took away that he knew the queen was her mother. And, you know, and I'm trying to remember if Isbeth ever says, like, nobody knew but these people. You know what I mean? There becomes a point where I think she addresses it initially, like how she got away with it or whatever.
Well, I feel like it's the Duchess is the one that tries to tell Poppy the first time.
Yeah.
But I felt like she said that she was like her grandmother or something. And I don't know, though, that means that the Duke also knew that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that he did. That's how I was going to take this. But either way, the reasoning that she's being punished, according to him, is because she didn't engage with the priestesses or whatever they're called the other day, and she also didn't pick up her embroidery set that she was supposed to. So
serious infractions.
Yeah, she didn't talk to a bunch of women she didn't want to talk to. So who the fuck cares? And she did forget her embroidery set, pick that up, which is a bummer. Yeah, like, just okay, like, this is fucking crazy, right? So he also says that she's too close to Tawny, right? And like trying to, like, again, take another thing that she knows that she enjoys or loves away from her. And she said that she had attitude with him before when Hawk was announced as her guard.
Yeah,
so
because of how, like, a facial expression she made.
Right. And he's like, you know, so 4 lashes or whatever. And I loved it when she was like, you know, that's probably not enough. You know, I probably need 7.
Yeah, I love that moment for her too, because she is taking control and showing him he doesn't have as much power over her as he thinks he does. You know, like,
right.
She's stronger than that. So
yeah,
it doesn't get to her like he thinks it does.
Yeah, right. She's a badass. So he ends up having her, you know, take her top down, right, and lean over a table so that she's, you know, bare chested, and basically puts his hand, or not basically, just does, put his hand on her shoulder. And then he just starts fucking hitting her with the cane with his hand on her shoulder.
Yeah. Which, like, and, you know, you mentioned that they come to their end pretty early on. And the only thing I feel sad about with them getting killed off so early is that they didn't get to see how powerful Poppy becomes.
Right.
Because obviously, like, then they would be scared of her. And that would be an awesome moment. But
yeah.
Poppy vows in that moment, even then, that she's going to tell the queen. And I wonder what would have happened if she had. Like, if he hadn't gotten killed and she did tell the queen. Like, I wonder what the queen would have done.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to think that she would have killed the Duke.
I think she would have.
Yeah, I think she would have too. I think she would have killed the Duke.
Yeah. I think that they're in her own twisted way. Like, there was some level of affection for Poppy.
Yeah, I don't think that she wanted Poppy to endure things like this. I don't think that was ever her intention. I wouldn't think. So afterwards, Victor's the one who takes care of Poppy. Says that, you know, while this was happening, you know, while the Duke had his hand on her and hit her with the cane, that Mazine also came up and took her arm. She was holding one arm over her chest. And Mazine took her other arm and put it on the table.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just this fucking guy.
Yeah.
This fucking guy.
Which the last chapter, it had said he just walked over there, and I was like, where is this going?
Well, I did too, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to read this.
Yeah.
You know, I really, like, and, you know, just.
Which I guess, like, the taking a hand off the chest, that's, like, so he could see her bare chest, because I felt like she was, like, face down on the desk still.
That's, I got, my impression was leaned over, kind of like hand. And then the other hand holding up. And he was like, no, put your hand down, whatever. Like, yes, to see her, but also to humiliate her. But it's my, you know, the way I read it.
Well, then, like you said, Victor's caring for her because Hawk had gone to get him because he was worried and he wanted to know, like, what was going on.
Right, yep.
Which I do have mixed feelings about Victor because of this whole situation. Because, like, obviously he's duty bound to the Duke ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
but like knows that this is fucked up and allows it to happen.
Yeah, like the whole taking it is nice that he takes care of her afterwards or whatever.
Right.
But he knows this is going on.
Yeah.
And like I don't know. And again, my only thought is that because he's a victor and his job is like it. That's my only thought is like he is
can't
supposed
interfere.
to allow this to happen. Like this is the route that she has to take for this prophecy to happen. So she must endure these things. These things must like that's my only thought because there's no other. It would be hard to have other redeeming qualities and allow, someone you treat as your daughter to be assaulted over and over and over again.
And I guess like from his point of view, he's thinking if he does do something or speak up, he's going to be removed from her guard or killed, so then he won't be able to protect her. But
yeah, like I said, I think he's just supposed to. It's like the path. That's the journey she has to take to get to where she needs to go.
Yeah.
Because nothing else makes sense to me, at least. So,
well, from Castiel's point of view again, while she was kind of like sleeping it off during this whole process, he was going in while she was sleeping and checking on her.
Yep. So I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I like that. So after this very just like, what the fuck, section, we move into a much cooler section.
Yeah.
Like
this is your type of stuff.
This is my type of stuff, right? That's when the mist is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So basically, we now see the other side of what Poppy is, right? She didn't release it yet. She's getting ready to release it. So Mist is coming in. She tells Tawny stay back. She's going to fight.
Yeah. And Tawny tries to talk her out of it, like for probably good reason. Like this is a common like heroine situation where they're supposed to stay put but can't.
Yeah.
Which I guess like would be relatable, should be, if she's trained and knows how to take the Craven out, then obviously she feels like she needs to contribute to that. But it always ends up being a situation where they put themselves in danger and then have to be rescued. And,
yeah.
Which, I mean, do you get the impression that she's done this before? Or like these Craven attacks have happened before? Because Tawny seemed to know that she would try to go right away.
So I thought that she said that they haven't had a Craven attack in decades.
I thought they said that was at the Capitol.
Okay. So maybe they've been having them here. Okay. Because yes, the impression that I got was she knew where to go, knew all about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it makes more sense, I guess, than she has obviously done this before, I think.
Okay.
So the way she gets out, right? Like she's like, nah, Tawny, stay back. I'm going here. I'm going to fuck some Craven up, right? So she sneaks out through the hidden hallways and chambers and she gets to the battlement and basically looks for Victor and immediately thinks about Hawk. And my thought as a dude reading this book, first time, I was like, what the fuck you think about Hawk for?
Again, I said this to you. Like, he is obviously a very important figure in her life right now. Because first kiss, this whole illicit thing, she still doesn't, he doesn't know she thinks who she actually is. And it would be on the back of her mind a lot. And he's the one who's supposed to be guarding her right now. So, of course, she's going to think about him because she's like, oh, he's back standing outside my door and I'm out here.
Yeah, I'm sure she was thinking about him because she was worried about that. So, we end up getting our first Craven description, right? So, here it is. They got milky white skin, which is okay. Sunken face, hollow eyes, all right. 2 sets of jagged, serrated teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, that's bad. And their fingers also elongate into claws. All right, they be coming in with the claws and the fangs, and she said they can get through your skin like butter. So these motherfuckers are bad, son.
Yeah. Well, they're like zombie vampires.
Yeah, they're the worst.
So they're kind of like seemingly starting to decay or whatever, but also will bite you.
Yeah, and
I guess zombies do that too.
Yeah, they're pretty gross. Either way, they're just nasty. So Poppy was she refers once to being 5, and other times she refers to being 6, but roughly around her 6th birthday is when she was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once I saw the age of it, I felt like maybe felt even worse. Like
because you thought she was older? I
don't know, because it's the same badness either way, but once like the age, I'm just like thinking of like what a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old looks like, and you're like, that's fucking terrible.
That is pretty bad. It was obviously traumatic.
Very traumatic. So we're going to skip a bunch of stuff. Basically, she starts fucking up Craven, okay? She goes immediately 3 for 3, right? Including about one that's about to get Victor from behind, right? Like, one's coming up behind him, right? And she's like, boom, 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 3 arrows.
Yeah. She's definitely displaying her training here.
Oh, yeah.
She's not just good with a dagger. She can shoot a bow, too.
She's bad as hell, right? She ends up going through 2 quivers of arrows. Do you know how much a quiver of arrows are?
Absolutely not.
Me either, but Google did. So, a typical quiver, as far as like our real world history of like archers being involved in fighting, is roughly 25.
Okay.
So, it can be as low as 10 and as high as 60. But typically, it's about 25. So she actually finds these quivers as she's going through the tunnel. She's about to go up a ladder or whatever into the battlement. And she's like, oh, there's quivers. She grabs 2 of them. I'm thinking normal size, 25 apiece. She goes through 2. She doesn't miss. Everybody said, like, she's deadly accurate. She doesn't miss. Castile says, or Hawk says that later, right? She doesn't miss. So she went 50 for 50. Word. She killed 50 Craven.
That would seem like a lot.
It's a lot. That's just to start with. We got a couple more coming.
Oh, wow. Well, a guard also sacrifices himself during this to keep a Craven from getting over the rise. Like, he just goes down with it. Which I couldn't tell if this attack, though, was a normal occurrence, like with stuff like that. Like, that seemed like a big deal. And that they're getting too close for comfort if they're literally getting to the top of the rise.
Well,
like, this happening often?
If it's Isbeth that controls it, how does she know that they've got right to the top? Like, how does she know when to pull it back?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have questions about how that's being controlled like that.
I don't know that it is for sure, but
it might be part pop. We don't know. So right before the mist pulls back, she ends up killing 2 more. So yeah, she's bad as a bitch.
Yeah, which is this is definitely your part of this scene. My part's coming up.
Okay,
we're about to get to my part.
Oh, like I'm calculating. I got my phone out right, and I'm like, there's 2. I'm doing research on quivers and shit.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm from America. What the fuck I know about a quiver of arrows? I don't know nothing.
And
about
I'm
that.
like, she's about to see Hawk again.
Oh shit. Okay, so Hawk shows up behind her.
Yeah,
and the only thing that I took away from this, where I was like, okay, like they're trying to make sure, is Victor goes beyond the rise and fights.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have to. And it's because he's brave, whatever. And immediately Hawk is out beyond the rise fighting also.
Mm-hmm.
So like showing that like bravery also. Plus he doesn't even like these motherfuckers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he doesn't want innocent people to die.
Right.
Obviously.
So immediately you're like, all right, this dude's good.
Well, in Castile's point of view, he briefly considered taking Victor out while they were out fighting. So he's okay. I could just take him out right here. And it would seem like he was killed in the attack, and that's one less guard I got to worry about. But yeah, then we get into like, this is one of my favorite scenes, I feel like, in this book, because just like their like tension and banter starts to build up. Okay. I just really liked it. And so she looks at him as she sees him. He comes up on her, and that says he looks like the gods had blessed him with eternal light. I was like, dang, girl. Dang.
Yeah, he says that she's magnificent and beautiful.
Yeah, he starts spitting game immediately.
Yeah, don't play with me. Come on.
Which he also seems to know who she is right away, and he's for sure fooling himself for thinking he could go through on his plans at this point, because like in his whole point of view too, he's just like in awe of her and is continuously getting impressed by her and sees her in a different way. But then Poppy surprises him even more and kicks his legs out from under him to get away from him.
Yeah, she also throws a dagger at his head, which is pretty intense, I think.
Well, won't be the last time.
No, it won't. She's going to do that quite a few times, I think. But along with catching this dagger, she knows he also runs super fast. He has like, Spider-Man and ledges and shit. She still thinks he's normal the whole time. And like he's running on like a couple inch thick ledges and like dropping down in front of her. Like, he's doing crazy shit. And she's just like, oh, wow, that's neat. He's fast.
Yeah. As if it's remotely human.
You're like, oh, yeah, that's weird. She does also take note of his eyes, which she says deepen to a striking ambient color.
Yeah, like they're changing colors, glowing.
Yeah, and she says it again, like maybe 2 more times throughout the set of chapters. Maybe not that same thing, but like notice of his eyes and the color. So you know what's going on. He also notices the type of dagger that she has.
Well, because she has it to his throat. See? It definitely wasn't the last time.
Yeah, well, okay, that's true.
Second time already.
Well, that's true. She still thinks he doesn't know that it's her, by the way, like that he hasn't put together. She's got a veil on.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout all this,
She doesn't have a veil on here. I think she has a hood on.
a hood on. That's right.
Yeah.
She has a hood up. Yep. But she's like questioning, like, oh, does he know that it's me? Does he know I'm also the one from like all of this stuff? Yes, of course he knows it's you.
Yeah, like she was definitely fooling herself. But then from Castiel's point of view, he's like so turned on during all this. And apparently he can tell by her scent that she is too.
Oh, okay then.
And tells her that he has known women with far less beautiful breasts who could fight well.
Yes.
And I guess he's referring to, obviously, the guards in Atlantia.
Yeah, who do fight their asses off and they're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, apparently don't have as nice a breast, so that's unfortunate. So he also calls her princess, and then he calls her by her name, which I think is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, reveals that he's known that she's the maiden. And he says that he didn't tell on her to the Duke because it would make being her guard more difficult for him, like that she needed to trust him. He also lets her know that he came back for her that night at the Red Pearl. And obviously she was surprised and excited to hear that. And he somewhat jokingly threatens to tell the Duke now. He's like, well, it's not too late for me to tell him. And she gets nervous and he notices. Like he picks up on her emotions very acutely and sees how she reacts to certain things and is learning a lot about her because of that. And admits to himself here that she's not the maiden to him anymore. She's Penelope.
Damn. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But also, he can sense something's up with the Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And how she reacts and all that. And that's why he's going to fucking pin the Duke through the chest with a cane. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for it. So, Commander Jansen. I don't know how to feel about him. I don't remember yet because I felt like I don't like this dude. But then there's a mention that after every one of these situations, so I guess it does happen more than once with like Craven attacks, that he goes to every house that loses a guard to meet their family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I thought I didn't like him. But he's an Atlantean, but I don't really remember.
He's one of the ones that kidnapped Poppy later. He is an Atlantean.
But he's an Atlantean that the king and queen of Atlantia have him there as a spy, but then he thinks that she's bad for Atlanteans. So then, okay.
Yeah. So they want to go through with the original plan.
Sacrifice her.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay, that's right. All right, because that's what I was like, man, I feel like I didn't like him, but okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think he's also a changeling, isn't he? Like I think so.
Is he the one that turns into the boy?
I think so. Yeah.
Motherfuckers. So we end up changing scenes and go a little later. Hawk and Poppy are talking, and he says that she is nothing like he expected, which makes sense because so far I'm reading, she does not actually come off as the one she's portrayed to be.
No, and obviously, like, he had very negative opinions of her going into it just because of, like, who she was and what she represented.
Right, yeah.
But I found him to be a little cocky in the beginning. I didn't love it.
Okay.
He says he knows exactly how much of a role that he plays in her life. And obviously, like, he's manipulating that. And that's also, like, it's kind of sad because you keep saying, like, why is she thinking about this dude? And that's the thing. If she wasn't so isolated, she might not be. But, like, to her, like, this interaction with him, like that made her year, you know? So,
yeah, that's true.
Sad.
Yeah, that is. That's a bummer. Yeah. Well, she does say that she feels like the woman at the Red Pearl, basically sent her up to that room on purpose.
Which we know she did.
We're like, yeah, sure did. And I'm like, really? That was the move. And that was, Miss Willa Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the move that basically set this whole thing in motion. Like, it would have gone to plan, potentially. I think, like, maybe Hawk would have never got to actually know Poppy as much if that interaction at the Red Pearl hadn't happened first or gone down that way.
Yeah, possibly. Well, he also wants Poppy to tell him what the Duke did to her.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a little smidgen of a, who did this to you? But it's really what did he do to you moment.
Yeah, and I get that because I would be doing the same thing, I think, on that side. But you understand both sides and her being like, nothing, don't worry about it. Like, I got this.
Yeah, well, it's a very common and popular, like, fantasy trope of a who did this to you?
Okay. Well, Hawk ends up telling her that she's braver than most men who, didn't go beyond the rise. And, he was like, Ascended wouldn't even really be hurt, and they don't go out there.
Yeah.
And Poppy ends up telling Hawk about the attack when she was a child, which is obviously a big deal for her.
Yeah, it was like her reasoning behind wanting to be able to fight. And her recollections of this, I feel like, are really realistic given her age, like we said, like 5 or 6. Because she remembers bits and pieces of what happened, and it's mostly like the moments that she hyperfixated on.
Okay.
Like certain things, like the feeling of her mom's hand, like slipping, whatever. And looking back, I felt like I could have seen the queen being responsible for this, because she says her parents were wanting a quieter life, but were obviously like tense and anxious, very clearly running away. So I feel like it could have been the queen, like this is their punishment, and she knew that Poppy wouldn't die. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because that part of me, I agree with you, but yeah, I mean, how do you know that Malek or whatever isn't going to go back in there and grab her or end it or whatever? Isn't he the one that ultimately was like, no, this is wrong, and saved her or killed her? I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah, also another, like a woman randomly grabbed Ian and put him in a hidden room. Did we ever figure out who that is? That seemed really odd.
I don't remember that at all.
Because that's why Ian survives this.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't remember that at all.
That seems like almost intentional.
Right.
But I also feel like it's obviously very relevant here that at this moment, Poppy attributes this attack to the Dark One. Like, obviously, we know that it wasn't him, but that's who she thinks it is in this moment. This, traumatic event from her life that literally has changed how she views things and makes her want to train and all that stuff. Like,
he's the boogeyman for every bad thing that happens to any of these people.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But then there was this quote, and I really liked it, so I wanted to literally read it. And it's Hawk saying, "Fear and bravery are often one and the same. It either makes you a warrior or a coward. The only difference is the person it resides within."
Damn.
Which I thought you would like that a lot.
I do like that. That's pretty sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, she says he sounds much older than he appears, and
he is by a little bit.
I'm like, well, he was a prisoner for 50 years.
Yeah.
Isn't he like 200, or am I tripping?
I feel like maybe 100.
Okay, 100?
Maybe 150.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure we get more information on it.
I was like, I don't remember.
It's somewhere. He's old.
Yeah, he's old as a bitch.
Yeah.
He's super old. So he's heard that she's been going around killing some cursed, right? Giving them deaths with dignity. And my first thought was guards be talking. Like, we need to get that fixed.
Yeah, obviously.
Let's shut the fuck up, y'all.
Well, and obviously, like he says later, that it was just the one. Well, in his point of view, he says it's just this one guard that he had given dignity to, or whatever, that he helped take out, that told him. It wasn't like bunch of guards, plural. We're just talking about it in general.
Okay.
But he tells her to kind of gain her trust here that he helps them too. And he asks one thing of her and moving forward, and she expects him to stay. It's to stay away from the rise, don't leave your room, or, whatever, don't go anywhere without me. But he says, wear better shoes and thicker clothes, because the slippers will be the death of her and the dress will be the death of him.
Damn.
So that's like, you can't really accuse Castile of being a Dane. Like, he's obviously empowering her and is like, you do you, girl, but be smart about it.
Yeah.
And also, you look hot.
Yeah. And he keeps that up for the most part. There's a couple times in the series where, he definitely changes his tune a little bit on that. But for the most part, and definitely the entire beginning, he's like, nah.
Yeah. And like to a degree, but obviously, like, that's really what you want. You want the balance. Like, you don't want someone who's entirely like, I don't have the desire to protect you. Like, you've got it. You're on your own. Yeah. Like, you want somebody who has the desire to protect you and that instinct too, but also somebody who believes in you enough to trust you to do your thing.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. I like it. Hey, learn something new every day. I'm just out here trying to learn, y'all. So, so we end up moving scenes, right? And we have the Duke and the Duchess up on a balcony of the castle, right? Talking down to all their peoples. So we know that Castle Tierman's 100-room castle.
Mm-hmm.
So plus you have like the people within the rise, but aren't necessarily in the castle, right? So I'm picturing like a small town, right? So Poppy says they've never done this. So maybe I'm like, maybe there's no Craven attacks. because they've never done this? Or is there normally craven attacks and they're just like, whatever?
I feel like there has to have been craven attacks. They just maybe aren't this bad or they get this close.
Okay.
And I also feel like them addressing the citizens also is because of like the rise and like maybe dissenter activity. And this is them like giving them their opportunity to kind of like put the fear back into the citizens of you're not safe unless we tell the gods you're safe.
Okay, makes sense. They attribute it to the first craven attack in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they say they're out there. And that the rise didn't fall because of the God's blessing. And that this will happen again.
Yeah.
Right?
Look right off. Yep, this is going to happen.
Like, this is going to happen again, guys. And, you know, they're being very... The Duke, really, in the beginning. The Duchess also when she starts speaking. But very just, like, dismissive, but also kind of mean, you know what I mean? Like threatening, like they're gonna attack, right? Like they're coming back.
Like it seems like they're trying to scare them.
Right. So Hawk has a hard time with it and he's kinda like, what the fuck, you know? And Victor says that, you know, the truth isn't designed to ease fears.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawk says, is that why we tell lies then? And that immediately you're like, oh shit, like this is gonna go down sooner or later.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Obviously. But you know, Hawk's telling plenty of his own lies there.
He is. So we also learn here that the gods are unhappy.
According to the Duke and Duchess.
You know, and you're like, oh no. Then the Duke and Duchess spoke to them, and that this is happening because the gods think people have lost their faith in them.
Which this was like, you can't even attribute to this being brainwashed by the Queen. Like the Duke and Duchess, obviously, like they're straight up lying because they're saying they talk to the gods. And I guess like, do all Ascended know the truth about the gods, or are they still like only like ones of a certain hierarchy?
I think they all have to. When they go and to become Ascended,
they learn that the gods are sleeping in.
Well, and probably not the real truth. No, probably be like, oh, well, the gods are asleep, and so we do this because of this. I'm sure they're brainwashed in a way.
Yeah, I mean, because I could see them keeping it from them because they're like, oh, we're drinking blood, but
because the Duke is from the Battle of Broken Bones or Two Brothers or whatever. He's 400 years old. Like, yeah, some of these people, like the Duke knows everything. He's 400 years old. Mm-hmm. That motherfucker been around. He was part of the battle.
And I guess when they have like their bloodlust in the beginning and all that kind of stuff, like that, he couldn't hide that.
Right. So yeah, I think they all know. But yeah, anyway, the gods, they said it's happening because people lost their faith, which is a real son bitch. So, and it's because there's ones who support the dark ones in the dark one in the crowd. And the gods now, you know, they're all mad and they know everything that's going on, even what's not spoken. So it's like even if you don't say it with your mouth, he knows that type of deal. You got a full on like just
right.
We talk to the gods. They said it's your fault for not loving them enough, and they know what you're thinking if you don't say it. And so you're like, well, fuck, what you want me to do?
Which is just like a wild like explanation of how they're controlling these people. And you know, like we said before, like religion is often used to control people.
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, you know, it's a bummer. So the gods. Or I'm sorry, the Duke says we are the gods given form, and that they're the only thing standing between the citizens and the Dark One. Like,
even though they're not the ones fighting.
Right. I'm like, so not fighting. Also, the gods given form. I'm like, interesting.
Highly of yourself.
Right. So then the Duke gets into, for whatever reason, feeling like he really needs to explain how things are going to go to these people. Right. So he says, if you're lucky, they'll go for your throat, but most of you won't be. So they're going to tear into your flesh and tissue, feasting on your blood while you scream for the gods you lost faith in. Like, whoa. Okay. Yeah. So maybe we can understand why. Yeah, these people don't like the Dark One. They're scared to death.
Yeah.
Right? So Poppy ends up sensing this blonde man and about a dozen others in the crowd who aren't happy, you know, about this whole Ascended thing, right? Like, and this is the first time that we see that her gift is evolving. And she even knows that her gift is evolving.
She does, and it started to kind of almost overwhelm her, but then Hawk kind of looked at her and checked on her to see if she was okay, and he made a joke, and she said it immediately filled her like with a sense of calm, and she allowed her to build her walls back up and calm down and kind of block everybody's emotions out, which I'm like, he's her form of anxiety meds already. Which I can relate.
Hey,
You're mine.
so somebody told this to me. I don't know who it was. It might have been you, Jack. Probably wasn't, honestly. It's probably one of my buddies. But they said, I know it was an Instagram video, and maybe it was you that sent it to me. Or my bud. I can't say his name, but he knows who he is. Bob. It said a 22-second hug a day or like 7 kisses in the morning.
Yeah, I sent that to you.
You sent that to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, I watched that and I was like, giving Jack a kiss in the morning before you head out for work, no big deal. I do it all the time. Like, I'm a pro. Been at this for a while. But 7, that's not on me. That's on Jack. She's not that much of a morning person. And I go to work while she's sleeping. So that just won't work. 22-second hug. That she's not going to be down for that either.
I would wake up for that.
And the fuck you would.
I would try.
Don't be lying just because there's a microphone in front of you. Anyway, out here talking about all these gods and you're out here lying to the public. Anyway, but 22-second hug, that's a real thing, man. Mm-hmm. You get in there for a nice, good, long one.
That's the best.
A little squeeze, not too much of a squeeze, room to breathe. You don't want to feel too tight. 22 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it releases some dopamine or endorphins or something in your brain.
Yeah.
And it's like supposed to like
serotonin, something like that.
Yeah, get you through your day. So boom, you're welcome for that. So there's a blonde man in the crowd, and he ends up screaming like lies, like you motherfuckers. Like he's throwing his hands up and shit. Yeah. He's like, God, lies, motherfuckers. And he's like, I want to know what's happening to the 3rd and 4th sons and daughters.
Excellent question.
Right? We all do. So we're like, what's up with them? So then he calls them out for hiding behind the guards and not protecting the city, which is true. And says, y'all steal children in the name of false gods. Which is
also true.
Also true. And then this motherfucker throws a Craven's hand up on the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, shit. Insane.
Which I'm like, what was the purpose of throwing up the Craven hand? It's not like people didn't know about the Craven.
Yeah.
People know about it.
Well, it's like, how did you get one then, maybe? Like, you weren't beyond the Raj, you're not a soldier. Like, you have no, like, the Cravens didn't get inside.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that way. Like, you're saying they're getting inside.
Okay. So like that's him trying to point out that they're inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't say that.
No. But that's what I think.
So I feel like it lost some of its shock value.
Well, maybe, yeah. Okay, either way, Poppy and Tawny, they're rushed back inside by Hawk, right? They're like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Tawny believes that the children, just like most people do, are in the temple serving the gods.
Which is what they're told.
Yep.
And that some of them are adults now.
Yep. And that they're seen by the priest and the priestesses and the ascended. Supposedly. But they can't read or write to you or talk to you or speak to you or ever
be seen by their family.
Can't be seen ever. Mm-hmm. So you're just like, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
Gods are tough,
Interesting.
Well, Poppy wants to tell the Duchess about her gift evolving, potentially, right? She's like, I don't like the way this is going. So she says that she's felt more lately than just pain. So pain is the only thing she was feeling or was normal to her to feel, right?
Right.
Okay. So the Duchess is like, the gods forbid you from using your gift. What you doing? Mm-hmm. You shouldn't use it until you've been found worthy to use it as a gift.
Which Poppy's like, I'm not doing it on purpose.
Right. Can't control this shit.
Mm-hmm.
So she thinks that she's felt pain, anger, and fear, as well as like an excitement or anticipation, but she's not sure.
Yeah, which, I mean, going back to the not being able to use her gift, what was the reason for this? Like, why are they trying to keep her from using it?
I think because she's going to potentially be able... Well, there's a couple times where it seems like she feels this emotion and she's almost about to send it back. Like, I've read and I'm thinking like maybe they're worried that she's going to realize that she can take all that in. She's not going to have anything to do with it. So she's going to unleash it out and she's going to start to figure out who she really is. Or she's going to hurt people, maybe.
I felt like maybe that's what it was, so she doesn't find out who she really is. But all of these gifts are going to start evolving regardless. Like, she's going to start to go through her culling. And the queen knows that. And it's like, did they think that her using the stuff would make it happen sooner?
Maybe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's probably right. Yeah. I can take that. So the Duchess out of nowhere is like, I'm not supposed to talk to you about the first maiden. And Poppy's like, oh, okay, word. And she's like, God said I can't do it. And she's like, okay, don't do it then. And she's like, they'll forgive me this time. Let me tell you. You're like, okay, this is weird. So she is like, yeah, that maiden one, I can't stand her and I hate her. But She says, I want you to see if you feel anything from me. She doesn't.
Yeah,
right?
she tries to feel
Yeah, she's like, I feel
emotion
nothing
from the
from you.
Duchess.
The Duchess acts like she wants to say something, but she can't, like, or she's getting ready to. Like, I think you mentioned that earlier, maybe about like who her mom is or whatever. It's just seems like she wants to say something. So she says that you can't say anything to the Duke because it would remind him of the maiden. And she gets
of the first maiden.
The first maiden, yeah. And she gets real angry about her when she's talking about her and says that she would wipe her name from the history book, right? So
yeah, she's got some sort of feelings about her.
And I'm like, man, I don't remember getting any more information about that. But either way, she really hates her. And she says that the Dark One is the one that actually killed her. Which I don't think so.
Which my question about this whole interaction was, who is the first maiden? Like, who is she talking about? Because as far as I know, there was no first maiden. But is she talking about Millicent?
That's who I thought.
Because that's like what Isbeth's plan was for Millicent to ascend and become who Poppy eventually became.
Well, yeah, and I didn't take the notes on it, but she basically says like, oh, she found unworthy by the gods, and she's like, no, it kind of makes it like seem like Millicent's story, like.
Yeah, I mean, Millicent wasn't killed by the Dark One, though. Like, Millicent died during her ascension, I believe. But also, like, what was the connection to the Duke then? If it is Millicent, then what was her connection to the Duke?
Interesting. I don't know.
There's supposed to be a book I've heard about Millicent and Malik. So maybe we'll get a little more. I don't know if it's going to be a book about their past or a book about them in the future.
I bet you probably get a little bit about the past still, even so. Interesting. Well, we end up again moving scenes, right? And now we get into another tough one with somebody I can't stand, and that's the priestess Analia. I can't stand her.
Maybe? Yeah.
Analia? Yeah, I'm calling her Analia.
I don't know.
I ain't even going to say your fucking name right. All right? That's what happens when you piss me off. I don't say your name right on purpose. How's that feel? So, Poppy's in a lesson with Analia. Hawk is there too. All right? So, she has Poppy reading history lessons or like text from history or whatever. And so
reading them out loud.
Reading them out loud. So we got a few of them. Here they go. At the Battle of Broken Bones, Jalara Solus, all right, which I'm like, I don't know if this is ever going to come up or came up, but he basically gathered his forces outside Pompeii, and that was the last Atlantean stronghold, and then the gods chose a side, and that was the Ascended.
And that supposedly Nyktos, the king of the gods, and his son Theon, the god of war, appeared before Jalara and his army. Having grown distrustful of the Atlantean people and their unnatural thirst for blood and power, they sought to end in aiding the cruelty and oppression that had reached these lands under the rule of Atlantia. Allegedly.
You said that with like a little bit of like you had a little something extra on that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Okay, then. So, Jalara and his army, they were brave. But Nyktos was like, he was so smart. He saw that they couldn't defeat the Atlanteans, right? And they had risen to like super strength throughout the bloodletting of innocents.
Yeah.
Right?
The Atlanteans feeding on the innocents, getting super strong.
So this is what apparently the Poppy and all of like the citizens who live under ascended control believe. They believe that Atlanteans killed hundreds of thousands of people by bloodletting. Or bloodletting is really a gentle description, according to Analia. She said, they bit people, right? And then she's like, there's a strange gleam in her eyes. And I'm like,
because she knows.
Yeah. And you're like, that's actually what your people are doing. So she said they drank their blood, became drunk with power, with strength, immortality almost. And whatever they didn't kill become craven. And you're like, all you're doing is reversing the whole story.
Literally the whole story.
The whole story is just reversed. So,
which is just crazy when you think about it, is that like these villains are like, okay, we're going to tell our story, but we're going to say it's other people and call them the villains.
Right. Like, that's the easiest way to do this, though.
That they're doing that are really horrendous is related to shit that we're doing.
Yep. Like I said, it's the easiest way to tell the stories. Like, let's just like reverse the names and it'll be fine. So, yeah, the ascended blood's given freely by the gods, right? And like I said, they've just reversed the sides, no big deal. But Nyktos supposedly gave the gods first blessing, and that he shared his blood or whatever with Jalar and his army.
Mm-hmm.
And like they all became like, they had the blood of the gods. So basically somehow Nyktos turned the first one into an ascended, and then Jalar turned his whole army into ascended, maybe, is what they believe.
Something like that.
Okay.
I felt like it was kind of like a mass thing.
Okay. Well, either way, basically now we get past all this good history lesson, right? And we got Poppy reading, from this book, and she starts talking about the Skotos Mountains, but then Analea says, it's Skotis Mountains, and then Hawk jumps in. He's like, actually, it's Skotos.
Mm-hmm.
You're wrong. It says his family originates from the area around Pompeii before it became the wastelands, and that the language and the accents can be difficult for some to master, but the maiden doesn't have that or whatever. And basically,
sick burn.
Yeah, burns her.
Which, I mean, he's bold as fuck. Like, obviously,
he don't
in
get
this situation, like, he doesn't care. And I guess that's because he knows that in 2 days they're out of there, but also doesn't seem to care. But so much about what the repercussions will be for her. Or I guess he's just like, there won't be.
Right.
Because I say there won't be.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I'll fucking kill anybody I feel like it. So, Poppy ends up comparing Atlanteans and Ascended, which is fair.
That's an easy solution to come to.
And then all hell breaks loose, right? So Poppy says the blessing seems to be similar to how the Atlanteans became powerful. They drank the blood of the innocent, and the Ascended drank the blood of the gods, and it's like...
And then the priestess grabs her by the face.
Oh, bitch.
Why is she such a bitch? Like, why? Why is she treating Poppy so bad? Does she got some relationship with the Duke and... I'm going to treat her bad because he does?
Yeah, I think the Duke does, and then it's just like, somebody we can mistreat, and maybe...
Jealousy? Like, what is it?
I don't know. Like, how do they think this is going to turn out?
Or is she so blinded by the concept of the maiden and this whole lie, basically?
She didn't even pick up on it?
That she's like, oh, I truly believe the maiden should be extremely committed to this, and gets angry with her for not being as committed as she thinks she should be.
Interesting. I think she's just evil. But maybe. Well, then she questions what would happen if she didn't ascend.
Ooh.
And you're like, uh-oh. And the priestess is getting ready to slap the shit out of her. And Hawk says nah, and he grabs her hand.
Which she says no one else has interfered before.
Right.
That she's been slapped in front of Victor on more than one occasion. And that's where I'm like, I feel like he could have intervened here.
Right.
Because, like, obviously, like, with the Duke, okay, he's the one in charge of you. But this priestess is not.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if the Duke has the final say, he would agree with her getting slapped by the priestess.
Oh, yeah.
So,
whatever kind of punishment you can dole out for no reason is great.
Mm-hmm.
So she does make a little comment at the end. She says, when you go to the gods, you'll be treated with as much respect as you have shown today.
Will she, though?
And you're like, I don't think this is going to go the way you think this is going to go.
No, because guess what? She is the gods.
Oh, shit. So we end up moving from there, right? Now Poppy and Hawker, they're discussing the latest events of what's going on, right?
Yeah, and Poppy basically slips up and says the Duke has hit her because of, like, combining what the priestess had said about the caning or whatever. And Poppy kind of slips up and is like, you don't know what he'll do or something like that.
Yeah, like immediately she has a reaction when he says something that kind of like, she's scared, obviously. So, Hawk says, hey, I wouldn't tell on you for trying to escape, and, basically says, you're not allowed to show your face. You can't travel. You didn't get surprised when the priestess went to slap you. You're not allowed to speak to anybody. Nobody can talk to you. You stay caged in your room, and then kind of ends it with the rights that others have or privileges for you. Basically just...
Yeah, which I'm sure hearing it from another person, like a third party like this for Poppy was kind of like, shit.
Right.
I didn't realize how bad my life was.
Right. Like, because it sounds not great.
Yeah. Well, Hawk is definitely flirting with Poppy at this point. Like, he says he's interested to see her at the rite without her veil. And then she abruptly is like, all right, we can't keep talking about this. Quit playing. And she changes the subject to ask if he has any siblings.
Interesting.
Which obviously is going to be a bit of a sore subject. He says I had a brother. And she feels his anguish sharpen. And then she reaches out to touch his hand. And it kind of like almost before she can stop herself, she eases his pain. And she can tell that he has felt it and that he looks more relaxed. And then from his point of view, like that's exactly what he says too, is that he feels like he can take a deep breath for the first time in a long time.
Right.
So,
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of insane because, again, I don't know, being able to help people through stuff like that sounds great. I also could see where, you could be kept as captive and like manipulated for people too.
Like people would definitely use that.
Oh, yeah, people are the worst. So, questions and theories. I have a question.
Okay.
I know that you don't really have a question, but I have a question. Poppy says that Hawk reminds her of Theon, the god of accord and war. And I have a theory that this is not a question, that this is going to come back up. Mm-hmm. My question is, do you think that's who he descends from? You think that's in there for a reason?
So I do think it's in there for a reason.
Okay.
I don't think that it's Theon. I will tell you why later.
Dang. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Some bitch, y'all. I'm going to learn today. All right, so how about some Poppy God signs? Looks like Justin's the only one paying attention. Okay, cool. So I've got a few.
Oh, man. I love that. And yes, in fact, you are.
Well, when she's sitting with the ladies in wait and taunting, she has like this connection or whatever with Lauren, where her gift reaches out. And, she talks about like the taste and the feelings and all that stuff. And she says that she couldn't feel or tell what she was picking up from Lauren, but she thought it was fear, but that didn't make any sense. And then she was like, well, these emotions have to be coming from me, influencing my gift. So I'm like, she's kind of taking emotions in, I guess, and then sending them back out.
I don't think she is yet. Okay. I think that was just her explanation. She says, like, because she thought the only thing she could feel is fear. So she's like, oh, this must not be coming from her. I just thought that it was. Okay. Like, this must be my own emotions.
Okay. The only other thing that I saw that I thought was a sign was after her, she had the meeting or the summons or whatever by the Duke. She had mentioned that her wounds would heal up real fast and that like by the next day it'd be healed. And I was like, this seems way too fast for what it seems like is happening here.
Very true. Yeah, definitely the couple mentions of her healing really quickly at this point.
All right. So next up is any Poppy taste that we came across of.
Yeah, so the first one came when she was with the ladies in wait, and she felt excitement and described it as being like fresh air on a warm day, and fear as tasting like bitter melon and being acrid. So first, let's go back to excitement.
Okay.
What do you think excitement would taste like?
Sugary, like sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I think probably like that, but like fresh, like maybe more fruity.
Okay.
And if it would be possible, like bubbly. Like.
Okay, interesting.
Like carbonation.
Okay, I like that. All right. And then you got fear.
Yeah.
Fear.
What do you think fear would taste like?
I think fear would taste like, what's something that gives me like anxiety when it like, I don't know.
I feel like fear would taste like when your mouth is like watering, like probably like bitter, like what she's saying.
Like lemons?
But maybe not like bitter lemon, but almost like bile.
Okay.
Bitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Yeah, that's bummers. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have one too. And we can keep this going, but it's from the crowd when Tielemans are giving their speech. And the first one is anger. And she says that it feels hot and acidic. And she feels terror in the back of her throat. So anger.
She doesn't specifically say terror, like what it tastes like, but she says that she can like feel the terror in the back of her throat.
Okay. So what do you think anger would taste like?
Spicy.
Yeah, this is hot and acidic. I can see that. I like that. Yeah, like some hot sauce, like some Frank's. Not too hot, not like, oh my gosh, not like I can't handle
Well, it depends on the level of the anger. I feel like
we can go up.
The hotter.
Okay, yeah, like the Scoville unit or whatever. I like that. All right, I enjoy that a lot.
And then she doesn't specifically say what she thinks terror, but I guess it would be just like fear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, next up is one of my personal favorites, and it's the Poppy kill count. And
which you did some math on this one.
I did, guys. Again, this is important to me. I want an accurate description of how many bitches she'd be killing, right? So this week, we got 52 Craven bitches that got killed.
Whoa.
Last week, 1 cursed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the beginning. So our total kill count this episode was 52 cravens. Our total kill count now is 52 cravens and 1 cursed. I'll keep you updated next week.
Which that's already quite a bit for
That's
just
53.
The first half of the book, basically.
Yep. All right. So before we get to things that I had to Google, we need to get to things you need to talk about from the Flesh and Fire crossover.
Yep. So spoiler warning for this section. If you have not read Flesh and Fire and do not want it spoiled, don't continue listening here. We're going to cover some parallels and crossover of the prequel series in this section. Again, if you don't mind it being spoiled or if you've already read it, then be sure to listen. But I will be talking about the other series. So the first thing that I noticed is we get a scene where Poppy is training with Victor. And I feel like that is a parallel because Serafina is trained by someone who was close to her that was supposed to be like a guard.
Okay.
Who ends up being similar to like a Victor, but he's one of the Fates. And his name was Holland.
What's a fate? I don't know what that is.
The Fates are like kind of like connected to the gods in some way where they're the ones seeing through fate, essentially, and how things are supposed to turn out. And they're kind of all knowing. And so that is one of the Fates is who ends up training Serafina. And it ends up with a very similar relationship as Victor and Poppy, where it's kind of like fatherly as a mentor, that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like it.
So that was the only thing as far as like content, but we did have some mention of the gods. And so I wanted to talk about the god mentions in this section now, because kind of my whole idea behind them is comparing them to who the gods were in the Flesh and Fire series.
Okay.
So she mentions the goddess Bele.
Okay.
Yeah. She was in Flesh and Fire. She did become the goddess of the hunt during the Flesh and Fire series.
Okay.
So she checks out. We knew about her.
Checks out. You're safe, Belly. Peace.
But then we get the goddess Layla and the god Theon.
Yep.
And said, I think it was Castile Hawk, said Poppy must have taken the human form of one of Bele or Layla, because like that was like when she was on the rise, like with her bow and arrow. So he's like comparing her to them in that situation, which is kind of like interesting.
That's cool.
Theon,
who she said he must be related to or a descendant of.
Mm-hmm. So he's described as the god of accord and war.
Nyctos' son?
Yeah, he ain't Nyctos' son.
No, you're not.
He's not Nyctos' son. He's not even related to Nyctos.
Punk ass Theon. You in the wrong show. That's
and it's like more of like of equal age, I would think.
With no penis. I know who you are, Theon.
So he is not the god of accord and war in the original, in Flesh and Fire.
Okay.
So Attis and his twin Kin are the gods of accord and war. Okay. And they were twins, and Theon and Layla are also twins. And there was talk in the end of Flesh and Fire that Layla was going to take over for Attis because he was going to sleep.
Okay.
And Kin died.
Damn. R.I.P.
And that one, he was a bad guy.
Oh, fuck you, Kin.
So I guess they're saying like Theon took over her. I don't remember them saying that that happened in Flesh and Fire. But anyway, so going back to the whole who is Hawk, Castile, who is he descended from?
Yes.
I don't think that it's Theon because Theon was not a very big character in Flesh and Fire. Could he be?
Okay.
Sure, maybe. But if he was, it would be kind of underwhelming.
Okay, fair enough.
So who I've heard other people think that he is descended from is this other god, Attis. Who again? Attis.
Attis.
Attes.
Attes. Attis.
And I've listened to the audiobook. Anyway. So I think that it's going to be more him, and that's who I would want for it to be. I have heard people say they think that Castile is Attis, but that doesn't make any sense. But I would like it for him to be descended from him because I like his character a lot in Flesh and Fire.
Okay. I know nothing about any of it, but it sounds great.
He's a character like you would want to see more of, and hopefully we do when now the gods are awake.
Cool. I like that.
Yep.
Is it that what you got?
Yeah.
That's cool. That was a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Thank you for doing that. So, I think it's time for things I had to Google.
I think so. I have a guess, a prediction of what one of the words might be.
All right, hold on a second. Let me tell you how many I got first.
All right.
Hold on. I don't want you to see my eyes counting. I think I got it. All right.
It took you a long time to count.
Well, because I'm like, I don't think this is lining up. I think I messed something up. I have 7.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I messed it up. Okay, so yeah, you know what one of them is for sure. The first one out of the 7. Thank you very much. And again, these are a lot of hard words. It's censure.
Okay.
And the way it was used, I understood why I was so willing to risk censure for simply sitting and minding my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was an odd use of that word, probably.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know what that means, but it refers to like formal disapproval or criticism. So a synonym would be condemnation.
Mm-hmm.
Antonym would be approval. So
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Like the word, sure, but like the meaning there, I don't know. So next one, acrid. I believe I heard you say.
That
acrid?
was my prediction.
Okay. So it reminded me of fresh air on a warm day, and then something acrid like bitter melon. So interesting. Don't know. It's having an irritatingly strong or unpleasant taste and smell.
Mm-hmm.
So synonym would be pungent. So I'm like, okay, so real stinky word.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So number 3, demure. Demure.
Demure. Very cutesy.
Such a demure maiden. The Lord murmured or whatever. Don't know what that means. That means it's it refers to a person's behavior or demeanor that is modest, reserved, or shy.
Mm-hmm.
So synonym would be modest.
Yeah. So, I feel like a lot of people probably do know what that one means because it was like a TikTok trend recently. Very cutesy, very demure.
Okay, missed out on it, guys. Didn't see it. So, number 4. I've heard this word. Everybody's heard this word. And when I saw it, it was used in such a plain and simple way that I was like, I don't know what the fuck this word means.
All right, hit me with it.
All right. That word is benevolent.
Benevolent?
Benevolent? What did I say? Benevolent? 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 What did I say?
I don't know what you said, but it wasn't benevolent.
Benevolent.
Uh-huh.
Benevolent. And the way that it was used was, I can be quite benevolent.
Okay.
And I said to myself, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know.
All right. Well, did you find out?
All right. So benevolent is...
Benevolent.
What did I say? Benevolent? All right. Hold on. Say it one more time.
Benevolent.
Benevolent.
Yeah.
Benevolent.
Yeah. You keep saying benevolent.
Benevolent.
Just go through the definition at this point.
It's having a disposition to do good, being kind and charitable.
Nice.
So synonym would be charitable.
I like it.
Benevolent. So the next word is ensconced.
Okay. Ensconced.
When others believe you are safely ensconced in your chamber. So I was like tucked away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to establish or settle someone securely and comfortably in place, or to nestle them as a synonym. So basically what I thought.
There you go.
All right, 2 more. This one really got me. I mean, they all got me, but this one I was like, whew, that's a good one. I think it's allayed. Allayed. And the way it was used is, it says, beliefs could be easily dismissed, fears allayed. So that is to diminish or put to rest. So, like, alleviate is a synonym.
Okay.
And this is the very last one. Again, a word that I've heard a bunch, and I was like, ooh, what you mean? Derision. Derision dropped from her tone like acid. And I was like, derision. Okay. And I don't remember what I thought it was. I'm trying to remember what I thought it was. Derision dropped from her tone like acid. I guess it was just kind of like sarcasm, maybe. But anyway, it refers to, like, mockery or ridicule.
Okay.
So I guess kind of similar. Yeah, mockery is a synonym. So, yeah, those are the words. It was 7 of them.
Enlightening.
Yeah, one of them I'm never like I can try to say it right now, and I'm not gonna say it right.
Probably not. You're also not going to remember these definitions tomorrow, so it's fine.
Benevolent?
Nope.
Oh my God, I can't. It's okay. Okay,
It was A for effort, though.
Well, thank you. Man, I did a lot of talking. That's a lot of words, Joe. That requires a lot of talking with a lot of words.
Well, we're at the end of the words because that's the end of the episode.
All right. So you guys can follow us. We drop episodes every Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Next week we'll be covering chapters 21 to
30.
Mm-hmm. You can follow us on social media on Instagram at TilledBooksPod, on TikTok at Tilled.books.pod, or you can email us or DM us. Our email is tilledbookspod@gmail.com.
Yeah. And if you've made it to this point in the episode, gold star.
Gold motherfucking star, y'all. All right, then. See you later.
See you next week.